Welcome to the EPSO HQ Guide to the AD5 2026 competition. Over the next 20 minutes, you'll learn exactly how this competition is structured, every test it puts in front of you, and where to spend your preparation time. Let's start with the number that defines this round. 174,922 people applied for the AD5 2026 competition. They are competing for 1,490 places on the reserve list. That is a success rate of 0.85%, the most competitive EPSO generalist competition ever recorded. But that headline hides something important. Here is what the headline hides. Most applicants will quietly drop out before the test windows even open. The competition is predictable, the format is fixed, the weights are published, and the gatekeeper tests are easy to pass. Understand the structure, and you move into the contention tier. First, what AD5 actually is. It is the entry rung of the Administrator Function Group, the policy and management track of the European Union Civil Service. It is the graduate-level door into the institutions. AD5 recruits are deployed right across the EU, the European Commission, the European Parliament, the Council, the External Action Service, the Court of Justice, and the agencies, from the Medicines Agency to the Border Agency. One competition, dozens of possible destinations. What does a fresh AD5 actually do? 3 kinds of work. You analyze policy options and draft briefing notes for decision makers. You help prepare legislative proposals. And you coordinate with member states, with stakeholders, in expert meetings and negotiations. And here is what makes AD5 special. It is the only EU generalist grade open with no professional experience required. It is built for new graduates. The higher grades, AD6 and AD7, demand 3 and 6 years of experience. AD5 asks for none. And the timing matters. The last AD5 generalist competition ran in 2019, 7 years ago. EPSO has now reopened it with 1,490 places, a large reserve list by historic standards. Rounds this size do not come often. Before anything else, are you eligible? Read this carefully, and then read the official Notice of Competition, because the notice is the legally binding document. If anything conflicts with it, the notice wins. Eligibility comes down to 3 gates. Citizenship. You must be a national of an EU member state. Education. A university degree of at least 3 years. And languages. You declare 2 of them. Clear all 3, and you can apply. 2 of those gates are wide open. Citizenship is simple, any EU member state. And the degree can be in any field at all. Law, history, biology, engineering, music, every graduate competes on equal footing. The competition does not filter by subject. Languages need real attention. You declare 2. Language 1 at C1 level is the language of your reasoning tests, and it should be your strongest. Language 2 at B2 and different from the first is used for the EU knowledge test, digital skills, and the essay. One date controls everything. Your degree must be awarded by the 30th of September, 2026. Final year students can apply, but you must finish by that date. A degree awarded even 1 day later makes you ineligible. So if you are in your final year, you are not shut out. You can apply now and finish your degree before that September deadline. Just be certain you will finish in time. The competition is not one test. It is a sequence of filters, run in order. You only move to the next stage if you pass the one before it. Here is the whole funnel, end to end. The funnel runs in 5 stages. First, your application in the single candidate portal. Second, the 3 reasoning tests. Third, the EU knowledge and digital skills tests. Fourth, the EUFTE essay. And finally, the outcome stage, an eligibility check, the reserve list, and recruitment by the institutions. The timeline runs across most of 2026. Applications close in March. The reasoning and multiple choice tests fall between late March and June. The essay is marked over the summer. and the reserve list is published around October or November. One thing every candidate must understand: a place on the reserve list is not a job offer. It is a license to be recruited. You will still apply to specific vacancies and still pass an interview with the hiring unit. The list opens the door. It does not walk you through it. And one detail that changes your strategy: only the candidates already top-ranked after the multiple-choice tests, roughly 1.5 times the reserve list, get their essay marked at all. And after the list is published, recruitment is rolling. Institutions draw from it over months, sometimes years. Patience is part of the process. Stage 2 is the reasoning tests, 3 of them, taken back-to-back in one session from home, with proctoring software watching your camera and screen. They don't test knowledge. They test how fast and accurately your mind works. The 3 reasoning tests: verbal, 20 questions in 35 minutes; numerical, 10 questions in 20 minutes; abstract, 10 questions in 10 minutes. 3 tests, very different lengths, and, as you'll see, very different importance. And here is the number that should shape your preparation. Verbal reasoning is worth 35% of your ranked score. It is the single most heavily weighted test in the entire competition. Nothing else you do moves your rank as much. So what is verbal reasoning? You get a short, dense passage, often EU policy flavored, and you choose which statement the text supports. The wrong answers shift something small but decisive: a must, where the passage said may; a fact reordered in time. The fast readers hunt for why an option must be wrong. Numerical and abstract reasoning work differently. They do not count toward your rank at all. They are pass or fail gatekeepers. You simply need a combined score of at least 10 out of 20 across the two. Clear the bar, and their job is done. This is the single most useful insight in the competition. Because numerical and abstract are pass or fail, every point you score above the threshold is wasted. Once you are comfortably clearing the bar in practice, stop. Every further hour belongs to verbal reasoning, where every point genuinely lifts your rank. 2 more tests carry serious weight, and you take both in your language too: EU knowledge and digital skills. Each is worth 25% of your ranked score. Together, that is half your ranking. EU knowledge is 30 questions in 40 minutes. The syllabus is broad: the treaties and institutions, the history of European integration, the major policy areas, the budget, and external relations. A wide field, but a predictable one. Here is the trap in EU knowledge. A surprising share of questions test institutional plumbing: who appoints whom, which majority is needed for what, not the headlines. Reading the news feels productive, but practicing multiple-choice questions on the treaties is what actually scores. Digital skills is 40 questions in 30 minutes, about 45 seconds each. It is built on the European Commission's own DigComp framework. 5 competence areas: from data literacy and communication to content creation, safety, and problem-solving. Digital skills is the test candidates most often underprepare. Common sense is not enough. It asks for EU-specific definitions and framework categories. And at 45 seconds a question, you cannot reason from scratch. Practice volume, not depth, is what carries you. So treat the 2 tests differently. EU knowledge rewards weeks of steady reading. It has to be built slowly. Digital skills rewards short, repeated practice, a focused sprint. Same weight, completely different preparation. The last scored test is the EUFTE, the EU free text essay. 40 minutes of writing in your language too. It is worth 15%, the smallest weight, but the one most easily improved. Here is how it works. Around 2 weeks before the test, you receive a dossier: EU communications, articles, position papers, statistics on a theme. On the day, you are given a specific task. Write a briefing note to a commissioner, a policy memo, an analytical summary. You write it in the interface. The essay is not a language test. Markers assess 4 things. Relevance. Did you answer the question and use the dossier? Structure. Opening. Body. Conclusion. Clarity. Short sentences, plain language. And audience. Does it fit the person you are writing for? 40 minutes goes fast, so use a fixed framework. 5 minutes to read the prompt twice and outline. 5 minutes to mine the dossier for the facts you'll cite. 25 minutes to write. Opening. 2 or 3 labeled arguments, a recommendation. And 5 minutes to proofread. And the essay carries a hidden leverage. Only the top-ranked candidates after the multiple-choice tests get their essay marked at all. For them, a strong essay can lift a mid-pack score onto the reserve list, and a weak one can drop a strong score off it. So remember what the essay rewards. Not sophisticated vocabulary. Plain, structured, well-signposted writing that answers the question for the reader in front of you. Clear beats clever. Every time. Now the maths that actually decides who makes the list. Most candidates know the weights. Far fewer act on what those weights imply. Let's fix that, because it changes how you should spend every study hour. 4 tests count toward your rank. Verbal reasoning, 35%. EU knowledge, 25%. Digital skills, another 25%. And the essay, 15%. Numerical and abstract add nothing to your rank. They are only the gate. Look hard at verbal reasoning. It is 35% of your score. And it is the only ranked test you take in your strongest language. The biggest weight in your best language. That is where the largest, easiest gains in the whole competition are sitting. Now apply that to the gatekeepers. Because numerical and abstract are pass or fail, a brilliant score in them is worth exactly the same as a modest pass. Once you reliably clear 12 out of 20 in mocks, stop. Redirect every hour to verbal, knowledge, or digital. Here is a rule of thumb worth remembering. Because of the weighting and the smaller number of questions, 1 extra correct answer on verbal reasoning is worth roughly 2 extra correct answers on EU knowledge or digital skills. Verbal points are simply worth more, so the strategy writes itself. Pass the gatekeepers, then pour your best hours into verbal reasoning. It is the highest paid work in the whole competition. If you are working or studying full-time, 12 weeks is the realistic runway, around 10 hours a week. Here is how to spend them in 3 blocks. The first block, weeks 1 to 3. Week 1. Read the notice end to end, open your EPSO account, and take a diagnostic mock of every test. Weeks 2 and 3. Build verbal reasoning. Technique first, untimed, and then timed sets of 20 questions. The middle block, weeks 4 to 7. Week 4, drill numerical and abstract, but only to a comfortable pass mark. Weeks 5 and 6. Build EU knowledge, institutions first, then policies. Week 7, a digital skills sprint, all about volume. The final block, weeks 8 to 12. Week 8, full mixed simulations. Weeks 9 and 10, the essay, outlines first, then full-timed essays. Week 11, targeted revision of your weakest areas. Week 12, cool down and arrive fresh. Notice that the plan deliberately leaves the essay until late. Writing skill fades fast when you stop using it. By practicing essays in the final weeks, you keep that skill sharp for the day it actually counts. And one practical task that costs places every single year. The tests are remote proctored. Run the official technical check, your camera, your connection, the lockdown software. The day you receive your invitation. Never the day before the test. Almost finished. Before you go, the mistakes that quietly cost candidates their place. Every single round. Learn them now, so they cannot happen to you. 6 recurring mistakes. Over-polishing the gatekeeper tests. Picking a language one that is useful instead of strongest. reading policy news instead of doing knowledge questions, treating digital skills as common sense, writing practice essays with no dossier, and skipping the technical check. And one mindset mistake above all. A first-time near miss is not the end. EPSO reopens these competitions on a regular cycle, and many serving officials passed on their second or third attempt. The verbal and knowledge muscle you build now carries straight into the next round. So here is the honest summary. AD5 2026 is the largest generalist field on record, but the underlying maths is more forgiving than the headline. The tests are predictable, the weights are known, and most applicants never seriously prepare, which means a focused candidate has a real path. Prioritize 3 things: verbal reasoning, EU knowledge multiple choice practice, and a handful of timed essays. Do those 3 well, and you are squarely in contention. So plan the work and do the work. Go to EPSOHQ.com and step into a full EPSO simulation. Every test, the real format, scored. Start your preparation today. We'll see you inside.